You know, every once in a while, an article comes along that forces people to stop, reflect, and question what they thought they knew. Rebecca Reid's latest piece for iNews does exactly that. She argues that we, as a society, the public, the media, and even parts of the royal establishment, owe Prince Harry and Meghan Markle an apology. And honestly, it's about time someone said it so clearly. Because for years, the narrative surrounding the Duke and Duchess of Sussex has been twisted, mocked, and filtered through the most cynical lenses possible. Every move they made was dissected, every smile was questioned, and every boundary they tried to set was treated as betrayal. But Reid points out something powerful, something that cuts through all the noise. The real royal scandal isn't Harry and Meghan walking away. It isn't their Netflix projects, or their interviews, or even their decision to live life on their own terms. The real scandal, she says, is how they were treated. How an institution and a press machine allowed a toxic environment to form around them and then watched it spiral. When we talk about scandals in the royal world, what do we really mean? Traditionally, the term has been used to describe affairs, financial cover-ups, broken protocols and power struggles. But this time, the so-called scandal was love, independence and honesty. Harry and Meghan didn't conform, and for that, they were vilified. Reid reminds readers that scandal isn't just about breaking rules. It's about what the rules reveal when they're tested. And when Harry and Meghan challenged the status quo, it revealed something uncomfortable, that empathy, fairness and accountability aren't always priorities within the royal system or the British media. Let's be real. When Meghan first joined the royal family, she represented something new, a modern woman, biracial, outspoken, independent and successful before marriage. She wasn't coming in as a blank slate. She had a voice, and that, right there, was enough to rattle centuries of tradition. But instead of celebrating that progress, the media pounced on it. They amplified every rumour, created absurd comparisons, and fueled a public campaign that often crossed the line from criticism to cruelty. Rebecca Reid's article asks, what if we've been wrong this whole time? What if the real embarrassment isn't Meghan's confidence, but our reaction to it? And you know what? She's right. Because if we step back and compare Meghan's scandals to the things the monarchy has survived in the past, they don't even come close. What we did was create a spectacle out of a woman simply existing differently. Harry saw this. He had lived through it before, with his mother, Princess Diana. He knew how relentless the tabloids could be, how the pressure of public life could break someone down from the inside. So, when he saw it happening again, this time to his wife, the mother of his children, he acted. That, according to Reid, is where our apology begins. Because instead of recognizing his actions as protective, as human, and as brave, we mocked him for it. We labelled him weak, rebellious, even disloyal. But the truth is, Harry did what any loving husband would do. He chose peace over palace politics. He chose family over formality. And in doing so, he exposed something very few people within that system have dared to say out loud. Sometimes loyalty to truth is greater than loyalty to tradition. Reid's argument is simple, but devastating. The real scandal isn't leaving. It's forcing someone to leave because you refuse to protect them. She highlights how the public narrative became so warped that it punished the victims instead of holding the system accountable. Harry and Meghan were constantly accused of chasing fame, yet they were the ones asking for privacy. They were accused of rejecting duty, yet they were the ones modernizing it. It's a perfect example of projection of society turning its insecurities into moral outrage. And it begs the question, how many times have we called people difficult when what we really meant was different? When you look at the timeline, it's clear this wasn't just a couple stepping away. It was a couple being pushed out slowly, methodically, under the weight of endless hostility. Think about it. Every family disagreement leaked, every friend turned into a source, every moment of vulnerability repackaged as gossip. How could anyone thrive in that? Reid says the press didn't simply report on Harry and Meghan. They created a caricature of them, the Hollywood diva and the runaway prince. It sold papers, but it cost reputations, mental health, and public understanding. The apology we owe isn't just for what was written, but for what we believed. Let's pause on that for a second, because believing is powerful. The audience gives life to the narrative. The clicks, the shares, the outrage, that's what sustained the circus. And Reid isn't letting us off the hook. She's asking everyone, including readers, to reflect on how easily we accepted those stories. How quickly we doubted Meghan's words when she spoke about struggling with her mental health. She reminds us that the moment Meghan admitted she was having suicidal thoughts during that now famous interview, instead of compassion, she was met with skepticism. Instead of concern, she was met with mockery. And if that doesn't qualify as a national failure, what does? Reid's piece also highlights something profound that time has proven Harry and Meghan right. Since their departure, almost everything they warned about has unfolded in plain sight. The toxic relationship between palace and press, the outdated structures of hierarchy, and the inability to adapt to modern expectations. And as new royal controversies have surfaced in recent years, the public's tone has shifted. People are beginning to see that the couple's warnings weren't exaggerations, they were early signs of what's now undeniable. It's ironic. The two people once accused of tarnishing the monarchy might end up saving it, simply by forcing it to confront uncomfortable truths. Reid doesn't claim Harry and Meghan are perfect. No one is. But she does say they've been treated disproportionately, judged by impossible standards, and criticised for things others in the royal circle have been praised for. For example, when other royals speak about mental health, they're hailed as brave. When Meghan does, she's called dramatic. When others take time off for family, it's admirable. When Meghan and Harry do, it's selfish. This is the double standard Reid wants us to recognise, and it's one we should all be embarrassed about. She also notes something I think is incredibly important. Apologies aren't just about words. They're about understanding. It's about acknowledging that the collective behaviour, the tabloids, the online hate, the institutional silence created harm. It's about saying, we see what we did, and we'll do better. That's how healing begins. And maybe that's how the bridge between Harry, Meghan, and the wider institution could one day be rebuilt. But let's be honest, that apology hasn't come yet. Not from the press, not from the public, and certainly not from the palace. The good news? Articles like Reid's are a start. They shift the tone. They spark reflection. They give permission to say what many people now feel privately, that the treatment of the Sussexes was wrong, unfair, and disproportionate. And it's refreshing to see mainstream voices finally acknowledging that. Because for too long, supporting Harry and Meghan was treated like rebellion. But telling the truth shouldn't be an act of defiance. It should be the baseline. So where do we go from here? If we take Reid's argument seriously, then we all have a role to play in changing the narrative. We can choose what we read, what we click, what we amplify. We can question headlines before we share them. We can listen to Harry and Meghan without the filters of outrage culture. And maybe, just maybe, we can start creating space for empathy again, something that has been missing from this entire saga. In the end, the story of Harry and Meghan is about more than royalty. It's about humanity, the right to define your own life, to protect your peace, and to demand respect, even from the most powerful systems. Reid's article reminds us that the royal scandal isn't the couple's independence, it's the way we reacted to it. So yes, we do owe them an apology, a collective, sincere one. Because they were never the villains of this story. They were the ones brave enough to tell it truthfully. And now, as time proves them right, maybe the world is finally ready to listen.